Dustin Haisler. I'm president of e.Republic, the parent company of Government Technology, the Center for Digital Government and Governing. Today we're talking about cybersecurity. So the one technology that actually polls higher than AI in every survey, because I think people feel like they'd have to do cybersecurity training if they answered it wrong, is cybersecurity, right? So this has been the #1 priority with agencies across the country for over a decade. The challenge is, it's not cheap. It requires new approaches, and we still have this best buy model sometimes in our organizations where you can buy a firewall and you're secure, and I can kick that can down the road and everything is gonna be good. But we have to do things differently. We have to think differently, and we have to come up with new models because we also have a constrained workforce in state and local government that needs to be incubated outside of state and local government. And so our panel this morning is gonna dig into an amazingly interesting partnership and new model called a Regional Cybersecurity Operations Center, Regional SOC, between DIR and Angelo State University. But this is a new model that I think is applicable to other jurisdictions as well. And so to break this down, I have my all-star panelists here that were behind some of this movement. I've got Tony Sauerhoff, the Deputy CIO for DIR in the state of Texas, and Dr. Dom Topliff, the Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs for Angelo State University. So guys, we got some time for a mini TED Talk on what's going on in the state of Texas. So let's dig in. And Tony, I want to start with you for this one because, as I mentioned before, there's a standard approach to how we throw more money at cybersecurity, we do this. Why look at an RSOC? Like, what was the inception of this for Texas?
Yeah, when I think about the inception, Dustin, I think about the old saying, never let a good crisis go to waste, right? There was an incident in August of 2019 where 23 local government entities in Texas were hit with ransomware at the same time. And this was before the RSOC program. It caught the state a little flat-footed, honestly. Just scramble and put together a response effort. Made it through that, obviously, and got things put back together. But some lessons were learned from that incident, and the RSOCs were born, out of that. The idea that local government entities out there across the state, and in Texas we have 7,000 of those, between cities, counties, independent school districts, water districts, on down the list of those local entities. They need help, right? They need help. And how to do that, the idea was to partner with universities and also to help to build that talent pipeline that I think Dr. Topliff will talk a little bit about. So that was the inception of the RSOC program. And then, of course, Angelo State University was selected. Our agency, DIR, has a long partnership with Angelo State University. It was really important that the first RSOC be successful, right? Because the idea, we have 3 today. The idea is to eventually, hopefully, get to 12. To cover the different regions of Texas, but it was really important if the program was going to work and ever get to that point, the first one had to be successful. So ASU was selected to make sure that happened.
So let's double click on that. So how does the RSOC function? And Tony, we'll start with you, and then Dr. Topliff, I want to get your kind of perspective from the university side. What's the setup of the RSOC?
Yeah, this is really a good one for Dr. Topliff to speak to. At DIR, at the state, we work with them, we provide support to them, but they really are doing the work on the ground and putting the RSOC together. Funding flows through us, but they're the ones out there that are actually doing the hard work and putting together and running the RSOC. So I'll let Dr. Topliff.
Yeah, tell us how it's constructed.
Yeah, so in 2021, we got a notice from DIR that they were accepting what they called an expression of interest. Now, in academia, we call that a proposal, but in state government, sometimes you can't call things what they are. So we responded to the expression of interest. There were, I think, 7 or 8 proposals that were sent in. We were notified in April that we had won that competition, and I got to tell you, we felt a little bit like the dog that caught the car, because we had until December to have it up and running because the legislature was going to meet again in January, and we had to show some success in that interim period. So it actually took from April to July to get the contract between us and DIR put together, so we didn't get actually funding until July. So we had from July to December to get it on the ground and get it running. We had brought on Deloitte and Apollo to help us. We have a good relationship with them. And so that's how it started, was using their platform to get us going. But since then, we've moved off of that. We are our own entity now. We have 12 cybersecurity analysts and about 30 students that work in the RSOC. We are currently have 60 clients in West Texas. We're monitoring 31,000 endpoints, 24/7, 365. And by September, we'll be up to 80 clients and about 45,000 endpoints.
And those clients are other government agencies and other entities, so you're thinking much broader than, state security, much broader than
Yes.
even academia, getting into the locals.
Independent school districts, counties, cities, sheriff's offices, police departments, and also water districts. So a very broad reach. And in West Texas, there's a lot of our clients that would, well, for example, one school district, the IT director is also the bus driver. And so I'm not kidding. That's just serious as I could be.
Figuratively and literally, right?
Exactly. And so, this is a very underserved region that's very vulnerable to being attacked for ransomware and so on and so forth. So those are who our clients are.
So where do the students engage? Because I think the most interesting thing here is, when it comes to incubating that next generation of talent, how do your students engage in this RSOC process? How do you incubate, their talent along the way?
So they start out training, and we actually hire them. They're paid. They're not doing this on their own dime. We actually pay them to do this. And so they have to go through a series of training before they're actually allowed into the operations room. We call them blue lanyards when they're training. And then once they get to the stage where they can go into the ops room, they become a gold lanyard. That's because our colors at the university are blue and gold. So if you're wondering why that is, that's why. And then once they're in there, they're working with our cybersecurity analysts. And so when we get a ticket, an incident that looks like it might be coming up, the students actually triage those tickets, and then they make a recommendation to the cybersecurity analyst as to what the next course of action should be on that. And so they're coming out of there with real-world experience, and we're building the cyber talent, and along the way, they're also getting industry certifications. We've had about almost 70 students go through the RSOC at this point, and between them and our cyber analysts, they hold 60 security certifications all the way up to, we actually right now have 3 that have CIISP, which is the highest level of security that you can get.
And not just, I'll add there with the, you've hired a couple of students, right, that are now full-time employees of the RSOC, right, after they graduated. And also there are, we've got a big issue with the cyber talent pipeline, and this helps this workforce development piece of the RSOCs. Helps that a lot in general, right? But what folks I think miss too here is, particularly with the ASU RSOC being in West Texas, Dr. Topliff talked about those entities out there where we do have, where the technology director is the bus driver, and we have a lot of that, and think about how it is for those entities to recruit cyber professionals out to work for them, right? In West Texas, to try to recruit someone from Austin or San Antonio or Dallas to come out there. Well, when we can grow them in that area and they're from there, right? They're more likely to stay, and we've seen that too, right? So some of those local government entities out there in West Texas that otherwise wouldn't have access to that talent now do.
That's amazing. So how do you interface with the local government entities and the other, ISDs that are out there? Do they sign up, or what's that process look like?
Yeah, so we go to them and we say, we're from the government and we're here to help. Actually, that's not
Sign here, right?
That's not the approach that we take. But
Well, and let me say real quick to that. One of the things in deciding to partner with universities, the big part is the student workforce development piece, but being out there in those areas, right? Being in San Angelo, rather than from Austin and saying that we're from the state, we're here to help, right? That's not near as successful as being able to say we're from your neighborhood university down the road. Right?
And we're here to help.
yeah, so our first 3 clients were the San Angelo Independent School District, Tom Green County, which is the county in which I reside, and then also the city of San Angelo. And I have relationships with the city manager, the mayor, the superintendent of the ISD, the county judge there in Tom Green County. And so it was a pretty easy sell to, because they're aware that they're vulnerable. And so, when you, I guess the hardest part of it is when you say this is free because it's being paid for by the state. And they're like, okay, what's the catch? How much is this going to cost us? There is no catch. But it is not a cheap thing for the state to do. I mean, when you look at licenses for detection, regardless whether that is, so just we use CrowdStrike, but CrowdStrike's about $4 per endpoint per month times the 31,000 endpoints that we're monitoring currently. You just do the math and multiply that by a full year. It's not cheap. And then on top of that, paying our analysts, our students, the RSOC managers, some other administrative employees. This is not a cheap thing, but fortunately, Texas is in a position where we have the funds to do that.
And it builds resilience in the process. So Tony, you mentioned this was kind of the pilot process. So what's that future look like? How is Texas expanding this?
Yeah, so ASU, as Dr. Topliff mentioned, 2021, right, is when you all started, and since then we've got 2 other RSOCs that are on the path behind ASU, and that's UT Austin and UT Rio Grande Valley. That's down all the way in the southern tip of Texas. So we've got 3 different regions of Texas. Again, the idea, the goal, the hope is that we end up with 12. And so the idea is to continue, right? To continue to add RSOCs as we get funding for the RSOCs. And ultimately that will be a decision for our legislature as we go forward.
And it seems like this has become a fundamental aspect of the state's cybersecurity strategy for resilience. So in our final kind of couple minutes, what I'd love for you to both share about is how do you replicate this, right? Like, so those that are sitting in the audience that are like, I want to do this in my state, where do I start? Any learnings that you've had, any kind of starting points that you think that they should, kind of start with? Tony, let's start with you for this.
Get a lot of money.
Get a lot of money. There you go.
That's where.
If you got a rainy day fund, this is a good.
I say that jokingly, but it really is. It's folks say it's a great idea. How do we do this? Well, let's. It's easy to say. Let's go talk to our universities, and universities, line up to want to participate in this program. It makes sense for a lot of reasons, but it's $5-6 million a year per RSOC. Right, and that's going to increase over time, and as you add RSOCs, not every state necessarily needs 12, right? Yeah. Not every state is as large as Texas, and many could do it with 1, and really, it could be done with any number of RSOCs for any size. It's the workforce development piece, and that being in the neighborhood that makes more sense to have more. I think first off is the challenge is funding. Yeah. How about you?
Yeah,
cheaper than a ransomware payment, right?
That's right.
Yeah, the other thing that I think is really important is it's not just the cyber ops that is our focus. There's an educational component to this beyond the students. We're out in the community as well. We are actually taking cybersecurity all the way down to kindergarten. So K-12. We work with our aging population who are extremely vulnerable to cyber attack. It's crazy. So I could tell you a lot of stories that would just absolutely break your heart that have happened to some of our elderly. So it is not just the university, it's the entire city, county. We're bringing cybersecurity to West Texas.
Love that. Well, there's a lot more that we can unpack here, but unfortunately we're out of time. I do encourage you to check out the Department of Information Resources website with the state of Texas, because there's a ton of information about the RSOC program there, as well as Angelo State's involvement in it. Let's give our panelists a round of applause for their insights.
Thank you.